All right, first question is, how is the current state of education, whether it be Atlanta, whether it be national, how do you feel about the current state of education?
You go ahead.
I feel like there's a lot of rote learning going on with education, in the sense of we give you facts, we give you information. Even the facts is kind of subjective actually, but we give you information and we want you to retain it. But I don't think a lot of critical thinking is stressed. I think we teach kids what to think, but not the nuances of thinking itself. I think that's the current state of education.
Well, how do you feel, since you say you're a new educator, that the students' preparedness in thinking coming into your classroom?
And I really don't think they're prepared at all in a lot of ways. I think it starts at home, and it's sad because a lot of them don't have that foundation at home where education is even valued. I think we're living in a society where materialism is heavily stressed. We live in a society where it's about what you have and how you. But it's not necessarily stressed on valuing education, because a lot of kids haven't seen people use the education to advance their social mobility. It's like you see people are either in music, and I'm not downplaying those avenues, but people are either in music or they're doing things illegal. So it's like, chances are, little Daquan doesn't know anybody that's a physicist or a medical doctor, but they know somebody that's hustling. So that culture just perpetuates how education is devalued.
The new way they want teachers to teach. How do you feel about the types of information that are being taught in the schools?
He's 25 years in. I'll never get that one.
I think part of that gets into the Common Core. I think some people kicked against the Common Core. I think some of the principles, a lot of the principles are good. It's pretty much like having a standard throughout the whole country. Like in Europe, they do have a Common Core. A couple other things, and I'm going to try to stay concise as possible. One new term that I heard this year at our convocation in Bibb County Schools was the term school dependent. And essentially what that was saying, the speaker was saying was that so many students aren't going to get so much support at home that everything's got to be done at school. Okay, and I think that reduces a quality education, because someone has to be at home. Somebody at home has to reinforce what I'm trying to do. I feel like now, with the capability of all the technology, nobody should be stupid now. I'm sorry. I mean, with all the computers available, maybe I don't have one in my house, but I know where the library is. Now, some people say they can't get to the library, but you can't do everything. But I know if we need to get to the mall, we get to the mall. So I guess sometimes the question of our priorities. So I think I want to bring that out. So I think a lot of pressure is put on, probably on inner city educators more so than others, that you have to do everything. You eat, the kids come to eat, okay? And in some cases they come for mental health. And then in some cases they come for physical health. Okay, so all those things are pretty much almost like a one-stop deal. As far as the curriculum, I think the curriculum, people are realizing that student skills, thought process skills aren't that good. Okay, so I think that's a big push too, to try to improve students' thinking abilities. One thing that I have always done since I've been teaching is that I teach my kids how to play chess. I'm not a great chess player, but I teach them how to play. So that kind of does some things for their thinking processes. But also too, on that, the thinking part, it's just not inner city schools that's having trouble with the kids thinking. That's just pretty much something throughout society, that we want kids to think more. And they have a thing called rigor. They want to increase the rigor of the students, okay, to get away from some of that rote thing. So you use that by asking higher level thinking questions, having more written responses, and challenging the students to think. But part of the problem is this. Some of the preparedness of some of your students can mess that up, and that can get you back to the road, because
they're basically thinking for them.
Yeah, pretty much so, because they got to have some skills. And that's, you know, some of the things that kind of hurts me is that oftentimes our students don't have, and I'm saying all our students, I'm talking about African American students, they don't have some of the skills they need to have, you know. And I think, I think you should never count on the school to do everything for your child. Okay, my kids were reading before they went to school, and I wasn't even a teacher at the time. Okay, but I was educated, and I read a lot. So I'm saying, you can't count on the school to do everything. They got some personal responsibility has to come into play. To shift that responsibility to the school system totally is, no, you can't just, you know, give up your responsibility like that. And everybody's not going to love your child the way you love your child or should love your child. So I think that's a little problematic for me.
Yeah, I like that. I like to add to that. I think that what he's speaking on speaks to the paradigm of being institutionalized. You know, and I think you can trace that back to, you know, Roosevelt, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and the whole welfare state. I think the intention was to get people to get on their feet and then eventually leave the nest. But, you know, a lot of us are staying on the nest, and I think, you know, psychologically it's giving us like a thought process where you're just dependent, where you're not self-sustained and self-sufficient in your thought process and how you move. And I think that's problematic because it carries on and it manifests in so many different ways throughout society. But see, my thing is, we act like this is a black problem, but most of the people living below the poverty line are white. You know, we ignore Appalachia, we ignore these rural places in this country. You know, I hate, because I feel like it stigmatizes us, like these black problems, these Negroes, these, I can't say what I really want to say, but, you know, they just need to get it together. This is, we make up, 13% of the country's population, I think? So come on, I mean, this is bigger than us, you know? This speaks to a social dysfunction and an institutional failure.
Do you guys see any differences between the young boys and the young ladies?
What? I got a lot to say about that.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go.
I feel like our boys are effeminized. I know there's a lot of conspiracy theory concerning that, and I'm not gonna say that that's necessarily true or not, but from what I see, the boys are usually either very volatile, very angry, or they're very effeminate. And what I see with the girls, like, they're more hard. Like, I broke up 4 fights this week, and out of those fights, half of them were girls fighting boys. You know what I'm saying? And this is not, I'm not attacking femininity, I'm not attacking womanhood, none of that. I don't even consider myself to be a patriarchal type of person, but I just see like there's like this, they want to make the gender more of a fluid concept, but I'm for gender roles. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying you can't step out of that gender role and do something that traditionally we would say a woman would do, or conversely something that a man would do, but I just think that we're losing an identity. I think we're in an identity crisis with our boys and girls. You know, I think, like I said, I just think that a lot of boys are becoming more feminized, and I feel like the girls are becoming harder.
And how are the grades being affected?
Let me go ahead. Can I just kind of discuss something there? And I think this is the need for African American men, you know, guys that don't have criminal records or have degrees, and I say, like, what can I do to possibly consider becoming educators? Because African, you're looking at unicorns right here. My son and I are both elementary teachers, and we're men, we're black men, and that is very, very rare. And I think that might be, I think the male presence needs to be there. I think for so long that, and we both teach in the female-dominated job market. I mean, education is dominated primarily by females. I think you guys know that. And the fact that I think women like having men at their schools. I mean, I remember once when I taught in Dayton, Ohio, there was one school that had no men in it from the custodial staff, everyone, custodial staff, teachers, everyone was a female. Okay, and this was back in 1992. Okay, so I think that plays a role in some of our men, our young boys. They need to see male role models. But I got to toss this out too. We say that, and I think it's true, but some of the young boys, they resent men.
I was just about to say. Yeah, yeah.
They resent men, and it could be because the things that they have observed in their own homes, in the case of the relationship between their mothers and either their fathers or their mothers and the person that mom is dating. A lot of that seems like there's some resentment
Definitely.
to that. And I don't know how we're going to work through that, but I think that is something that we also have to consider. And again, I consider any young African American male, to at least look at the field, because it's definitely a need. I mean, it's not going to be perfect, because nothing is perfect. But I mean, if you're culturally aware and community minded, that is something that could be examined if a guy is thinking about a career. Now, as I said, a career, not a job, but it's a career.
But to kind of accentuate what my father was saying, I was coming in thinking, okay, not necessarily with a cape. I know I can't save everybody, but I was thinking, okay, well, a lot of these kids, they don't see men, so maybe I could be a positive reinforcement. But a lot of times, they will vilify you and dare I say, hate you, because you embody something that they don't see but that they want, and then it's like some of these little boys and some of the girls too, they feel like, well, it's a man that my mom is giving her time to, so it's almost like you become the enemy in essence.
Well, with that being said, it actually segues into the next question was, why did you guys get involved in education? It seems as if you guys were actually talking about that, but that was the next question, is why specifically did you guys get involved in education?
Well, I got in at a different time, and I got in because I needed a job. My background is in production management. In fact, I was in production supervision for about 10 years. Teaching is my second career. I moved to Dayton, Ohio for some opportunities that my wife had. And at that time, I could not find a job in manufacturing, and I had 2 children, and I needed to get a job, and I needed to get a job with benefits. So I went to a job fair, and at Dayton Public Schools, and asked a young lady what jobs did I have, did they have, and not require a teaching certificate. And she told me I could be a parapro on a handicapped bus. And all I'm thinking, like, that's benefits until I could get something else. And it turned out it wasn't. It was a parapro position in a kindergarten class for at-risk students. And I got in, and things went well for me. I got encouraged. I got into a program at the University of Dayton where I got my teacher certification and my master's. And then I just segued into actually a teaching position. And that was like 25 years ago. So I've been doing that for the last 25 years.
Oh, wow, it's my turn. I don't have this idealistic story. Like, I just woke up one morning and one thing I did notice is I was working at a job where I had good benefits, a lot came with it, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled. Like, I was having nightmares about my job, And I was thinking, like, a lot of the men that I admire, such as my father, John Hope Franklin, Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Yosef Ben Yochanan, they were educators, they were scholars, W.B. Du Bois. And I was just thinking, how could I impact society on a mass scale? And I felt like it's through education, because education is a means of socialization, So that's why I got involved with it.
And why do you guys think there aren't that many male teachers, especially black male teachers?
Couple of things. I think a lot of guys can't pass the background checks. In all honesty, I think that was the problem, because I think back to a time when I was teaching in Toledo, Ohio, and we was trying to get a gentleman into the University of Toledo, helping go get his teaching certification. I thought he'd done an excellent teacher. We'll come to find out, he finally told us, after we've been going around for a couple of months, that he had a felony. Okay, but up until that, I think that's part of it. I think part of it also is guys feel as if that, you know, I did school, I don't want to go to school, I just don't want to be bothered with it. But I have to say, there's a lot of opportunities. There's a saying in education now, I think Harry Wong, who's one of the education gurus, says that within 5 years, it's possible for a guy to have, or a gal, to have any job in education they want, going from teacher, parapro, all the way up to superintendent. Because, you know, people get out of the profession. There's some things that people don't like about the profession. There's some things, you know, I don't like about the profession. But then there's some other things that you get a great sense of pride when you see somebody you actually taught do something. I do ACT and SAT prep, and one night, one weekend, I watched 5 of my kids either play college football, college basketball, or professional football in a weekend. And I had something to do with them. Maybe not their athletic ability, but from the academic side. So I thought that was, everybody can't say that. And that made me feel real good, thinking that I had that kind of positive impact. Now I also have some guys in jail. So,
Strippers.
well, okay, but that's just kind of how it is. So, you know, you pretty much, I have the gamut. But, you know, I like to kind of focus on the guys that's trying to do something. A couple of my guys, they own their own trucks. And one guy in particular, when he told me that, I was really proud, because he was not, you know, he was not the strongest academically. He was a good person, but academically he had some weakness. But he's found his niche in society, and he's, you know, he's buying his own truck, and that really made me feel good to see that. And he remembers that I taught him how to play chess, so he appreciated that.
Do you think with education that they see the lackluster of how we educate ourselves, and they themselves feel as if that the education system in general is failing our students, and that's maybe why they don't get into education? If they see that the educational system itself is the institution is failing the students.
You know, I don't. You could say that, but I'm reflecting upon the people that I think, and I don't think it's so much as the system. I think they're more concerned, in all honesty, I gotta say this, that they're more concerned about the behavior of the students.
Yeah.
Not so much as, you know, the teaching part of it, but the things that they have to deal with in terms of some student behavior. And that could be a big part of it. Guys, you know, you got young men coming in, and they're not going to be insulted. They're not going to be disrespected. But we have students, in some cases, not all, so I don't want to be coming up saying all, but there's some kids that will go there, because we all are products of our environment. If you're in an inner city school, if anybody watching this that's taught at an inner city school, they'll know what I'm talking about. That you have kids that will challenge you, because that's just how it is, where they grow up. I mean, you know, and how they are growing up. But I guess I'm saying, if anybody considers doing that, they also need to consider some of the challenges. Okay, some of the challenges, and right now, that is a challenge. I think sometimes student behavior can be difficult. There's things people are trying to do in terms of improving student behavior. There's a big thing now talking about when you get your class, you go through your rituals and routines, and then there's a thing called PBIS, it's Positive Behavior Intervention System. Schools are implementing that, and so that's one of the things that, a couple of things that people should consider.
You just said a lot right there. I'm trying to figure out where I need to go with it. I guess basically they always say, I'm going to tie it in to tie it in with the students' behavior. They say that a people's culture, by and large, manifests through their music, and that the DNA of a culture is a people's language. And if you really listen to like hip hop now, specifically trap, even like the tempo of the beats, the production style, it can be kind of dark or really erratic, and a lot of times it's getting to the point where they're not even using words. You know what I'm saying? So I see how that reflects and correlates with the students and how they talk and how they act and things of that nature.
So what do you guys think about the school to prison pipeline, and how does it affect the students, or how have you seen that sort of effect within the educational system?
I'll say this. I feel there used to be a saying, if you open the classroom door, you shut the prison door. But the way I see it now, like the education system and the prison system are twins of one another. They mirror each other. And it's like one is a socialization that's in theory supposed to move you forward, and another is a socialization in prison that is meant to punish you. You know, and the thing is, and let's keep it 100. You know, this country was built on exploitation. It was built on materialism. It was built on consumption of money, wealth, whatever. And the thing is, we've literally turned our prisons. We've created a demand for more prisoners. You know, there was actually a because it's big business. You have a lot of private. I think Obama was trying to do something that would end private for-profit prisons. But to my understanding, there still are a lot that exist. And there was actually a prison warden in Wisconsin. He was trying to sue the state of Wisconsin because he didn't have enough prisoners. So it's like, what's that all about? You know what I'm saying? It's like it's a hustle. You know, it's But back to the whole education and prison mirroring each other. What do the kids do? We put them in lines. They got IDs. They got uniforms. What do they do in prison? They got uniforms. They got ID number. They walk in line. You know, they have the whole. We got ISS, in school suspension. It's like, again, they mirror one another. You know, and I guess my thing is like I feel like we don't stress a lot of independent thinking, and I think I'm trying not to go off into the conspiracy theory even, but I feel like that's definitely not by accident. I think there was some guy. He was like a billionaire. I want to say he was in the Rothschilds or the Carnegies. He said, you know, I care not to have thinkers. Give me workers. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I don't know how to make a kid want to learn. I don't know how to make a kid understand, like, look, bro, I get it. You don't want to learn about these old white folks that did this stuff. I get it. But the thing is, everything is a means to an end. You know what I'm saying? That means being you get your education and you'll have more options or choices in life. You know, depending on what you do with it. I know that's some real after school special stuff. But, like, for real, me having a degree, it gave me more opportunities and options to do things. Now, I understand education is not for everybody. I understand that there's some people who they have skills and trades, or, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know, because the whole issue between Booker T. Washington and W.B. Du Bois was W.B. Du Bois is saying, no, go to education, be a scholar. You know, Booker T. Washington is thinking, you know what, we just came out of slavery, we just got the you know, Reconstruction, and they're giving us positions where we can use the trades we learned. And my thing is, I think both of them were right. You know, and it's one thing about our black leadership, I think we're always at odds with each other, but at the end of the day, we want the same thing, which is for our people to move forward. So I think we have to understand we need to stop beefing over ideology. You know, that might be your lane. You're more, okay, you're a 5%er, okay, you're a Christian, you NOI, okay, that's cool, but we're all black, African American at the end of the day. I know some people hate that term, African American, but we're all melanated people at the end of the day. And back to the prison thing, I try to tell my kids, like, you talk about how you don't want to be told what to do, but the way you're headed, you're going to be a place where you will always be told what to do. You'll be told. I mean, a prison cell is nothing but a bathroom. You'll be living in a bathroom.
I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, you got a point.
Well, let me ask a question also too. Have you guys seen any students that you have found to be you can't save them, or are all students savable, just depends on how you approach them so that you can stop them from going to the prison later on in life.
Theoretically, you come in that, they say every student can learn, and we all can learn, okay? But for some of the students, to save them, we're talking about a complete change in their environment, okay? So yeah, they can be saved, but other factors come into play. Because I tell my kids, now, you don't live with me. Now, if you live with me, there would be some different things. But, basically, I got you for the week, and then you go home on the weekend, and whatever you do or what allowed to do in your home, that comes back to school with you on Monday. Case in point, I had a little girl one time, I teach 3rd grade, and we were going to clean out our desk. I got this big garbage bag. We're going to clean out our desk. Well, even the boys got in. They cleaned out their desk, no problem. She refused to clean out her desk. A simple thing, just taking the junk, throwing it away. I said, look, I'm not even going to look at what you throw away. Just throw it away so you can have our desk clean. And I later found out, it got to a big deal, but I later found out her mom had been arrested over the weekend. So I'm sure at that point she was lashing out at any authority. She couldn't do anything against the police. She couldn't do anything against a judge. So who could she attack? Maybe not say attack, but who could she vent her frustrations out on? Me. And that has a lot to do with it. I think, as far as, to get back to your question, yeah, every child, you don't want to say they can't be, but if I say that they can be, it's got to be with the caveat of, you may need to take that child out of that house and put him with somebody else and have some extensive tutoring, or in some case, extensive mental health. Because mental health is real.
We sleep on that.
Mental health at an early age is real.
Yes.
Okay, I have to.
Very much so.
I have to say that it's something that must be examined.
Because I have a student right now. I teach 5th grade. I have a student right now that's been diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic. And I guess I feel like in our community, it's either suck it up, toughen up, but we don't really focus on healing. We're so busy on either putting up a facade, and even being a Christian myself, I feel like we pray too much. You know what I'm saying? I believe in the power of prayer. I think, prayer, meditation, all that stuff is cool, it's great. But I feel like God did give us a brain. God has depending on who you ask, but we are advanced enough in society where there are medications that can be used to quell certain things or help us overcome certain mental health issues. I think we need to. There's so many people, black people, our people, suffering in silence, and there's so many people who are undiagnosed and they trying to function in society.
Yeah.
you know.
And I think back at it too. Schools were basically set up to get people indoctrinated in society. So if it's set up to get you indoctrinated in society, then society is going to come into the school.
Right.
And if you think about it, if you asked certain people who've committed certain crimes, if you asked their teachers and they told you that they committed a crime, they would tell you, I'm not surprised. And then they would tell you the story. When he was in my class, he did this, and that. Okay, so oftentimes if someone's going to have some difficulty, where's your biggest socialization at a young age? School. So if it's going to be a problem somewhere along the line, it's going to show up in the school. And I might add one other thing too, as far as parents, just because it's going to come down to the parents, because the parents are the student's first teacher. It's always going to come back down to the parent. Parents need to understand that prisons, jail cells are determined by state testing, how many they're going to build. Okay, and in Georgia we have the milestones in the 3rd grade and 5th grade and 8th grade. Those tests you have to pass. People call them gateway tests. Depending upon how many students fell in the 3rd grade, those numbers are taken in consideration when they're building jail cells.
Right. And that speaks to a huge societal failure, because we're basically saying we see the correlation between crime and education or lack thereof, but we're still gonna let it persist. And I remember somebody, a coworker of mine, telling me a while back. He said, "You know, Maurice, you gotta understand, this society is all about money. So it's like if you can't make your own money legally, they'll make money off of you in the jail cell."
So in conclusion, I would like to know, where do you think education is headed?
Quickly, it's going to a more global aspect, because our students have to understand no longer are they competing against the guy in Ohio, but they're competing against the guy in Tokyo, Singapore, all over the world, and the technology has something to do with that. So I see it becoming more technology based. I know that the technology is going to be there, and also people are looking for people who can think. The thinking part is going to be big, as well as the STEM. There's going to be a lot of science and technology. That's going to be a big push in that area. Yeah. And if students aren't able to get access to the computer, or that's going to put them at a big disadvantage. And if they can't purchase one again, go to the library. Somebody's got to understand that. Go to the library, and that's
use your iPhone.
Well,
I mean, everything. True. I mean, what the cell phone is probably one of the most huge technological advances over the centuries, over the years. You know, yeah. and what it's a one-stop shop. Yeah. You know, it's a library, it's a recorder. Like you can do so many things with it. And the thing is, like, I see like a lot of us. Not just us black people, but society in general. I think we use technology as a means to either holler at some girls or set up a vacation, you know.
Or mindless entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. It's like on some real allegory of the cave type stuff. It's like we just looking at the walls in the cave and not trying to transition beyond that. You know, I remember Nas had a line on one of his albums where he said, like, you know, essentially, black people with our spending habits and how we think, we're almost like the teenagers of society. You know, and it's like we gotta transition beyond that and try to invest in things that have long-term lasting value.
And do you see that as a possibility with education, the way education is headed?
I think somebody's got to be sharp enough to see it.
I think Jeffrey Canada has made some advancements with the charter school, but I feel a certain kind of way about charter school. But we'll talk about that later.
But I think that somebody's got to have a vision. Somebody's got to be able to see what I can get out of this deal. Okay, I'm going to school. Okay, what can I? So what? I think is what I can get from the benefit from what I'm being educated comes, and people got to understand, there's opportunity. But again, as we said earlier, it was mentioned earlier, Maurice said that when people don't have not the opportunity, but have not seen anybody benefited from going to school, like, right. So what? But I'll say this, God is good. He has given most of us. If I have trouble reading, somebody in my family can read. Okay, I know somebody that can read. I know somebody that can do math. If not, just use this opportunity to ask somebody, can they help me? I think a lot of that, I think tutoring is going to be big. It's going to be big because there's so many students who going to need that kind of assistance because they're behind. When you're getting kids 3 and 4 grade levels behind, they're not going to get that in the summer. Right. That has to be done continually,
But I mean, even beyond that, I feel like at the end of the day, I don't care if your daddy is a Harvard professor. I don't care if your mama went to Yale. I don't care if you got Barack Obama's cell phone number. Like, if you don't desire to learn, it doesn't matter what It doesn't matter how anything is facilitated for you. You know, I think when I read Up From Slavery, Booker T. Washington walked over 1,000 miles to a school that he wasn't even sure existed. he just heard about Hampton. You know, so he didn't even know. So my thing is like, if you know, it may sound hella cliche, but when there's a will, there's a way. I mean, even this very moment that we're here. I mean, I went to Georgia State with you. You know, and you know, I think for the most part we value the same things. You know, and I just feel like, you know, if you want something, you'll build with like-minded people. You'll come together.
Yeah, and you can't minimize that want to. I coached high school football, and I wanted a guy that wanted to do it. And that you cannot minimize the desire.
And I don't know how do you give somebody a desire? Can you?
I'm not sure if you can give a person desire, but I think you can kind of point to examples. And then one thing about teaching, and I guess the last thing I want to say about this, oftentimes you never see your results till 10 years later. Okay? And I think sometimes we want to see it like right now, and then you'll see somebody in the store and they say, I remember when you told me this. So, you know, we could be ticked at this guy right now, but 10 years from now, this guy will love you and will tell you how much he impacted you. But at the time he's doing his damage, all you think is like, you know, something's wrong with him. Yeah. But, you know, but then later on, and I think, again, accept the fact of being a role model. I accept the fact that I am a role model for somebody's kid. I accept that. Like we're talking about the young lady, well, I have a young lady that does professional dancing, which involves poles, okay?
Stripper.
And then one of my students said, Mr. Stewart, you ought to see such and such. She looked good. And I told him, I can't see her. That's my student. So they're always going to be your student. Regardless, if you taught them, they're yours.
Well, I appreciate the time for this information, and if you guys need to give your names again so the people can know who we're looking at and who you guys are.
I'm Doug Stewart. I teach in Macon, Georgia.
My name is Maurice Stewart, also known as Mac Warbucks. Follow me on IG. I gotta get a little gutter with it. Dr. DOCTOR _Warbucks WARBUCKZ.
Thank you for the time.